Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the 28th Timothy J. Maude Leadership Lecture Series, given in honor of the late Lieutenant General Timothy J. Maude. At this time, I would like to introduce Colonel Chesley D. Thigpen, Commandant of the Adjutant General School and 36th Chief of the Adjutant General Corps.
Hey, well, first of all, I know you're not here to see me or hear me talk, so I will keep introductions really short. But what a great day it is to be a soldier. What a great day it is to be a soldier. It's also a great day to be an Adjutant General Corps soldier, and the opportunity that we have to welcome the community, our leaders here at the Solomon Center. And we do have a couple of special guests. I'm going to go through a list of, we would call the VIPs, but what I would tell you is a representation of our community here in Columbia, our leadership on Fort Jackson, as well down at Army Central in Shaw, in Sumter. We got folks from kind of all over our area here to listen to the SMA pass on some things. But for me, the representation for Lieutenant General Maude and the reason why we do this event. So the Honorable Kevin Suedo, our CASA from South Carolina, Major General Hood, our Commanding General, Command Sergeant Major Oakes. We also have Command Sergeant Major Garza up from Sumter. Thank you for being here. Sergeant Major Stevens, Army G1 Sergeant Major, I think he rolled in. Sergeant Major Gaskins from MNRA, Chaplain Brigadier General Causey, and Command Sergeant Major Roldan. We got our DCO here. I want to mention him as well. You know, Colonel Hutton, Mark Hutton, great relationship that we have with him for everything we do from the Soldier Support Institute. Colonel Edwards, Command Sergeant Major Turner, our garrison team, Colonel Hickman and Command Sergeant Major Bree, Miss William Smith, Office of Mr. William Smith, Office of Senator Lindsey Graham, Mrs. Susan McPherson, our Columbia Chamber of Commerce, Miss Jennifer Harding, ESGR is attending. Command Sergeant Major Retired Ed Bell, South Carolina Veterans Affairs, and Sheriff Leon Lott from Richland County. Just want to say welcome and thank you for being here, representing the great team and family we have here at Fort Jackson and Columbia area. All of our command teams and our leaders and our soldiers that are in the audience. What a great day it is to be here and hear from one of our senior leaders. Thank you for friends and family to put this event together. You know, we do this biannually. It is no small task to get this together, and I just want to say thank you to the teams that work behind the scenes right now. I'm going to pass that on to say thank you because we couldn't do it without the team effort. But all the friends and families of the Adjutant General Corps, Soldier Support Institute, and Fort Jackson, welcome to Lieutenant General Timothy Maude Memorial Leadership Lecture Series. Real quickly, this event was established several years back in memory of Lieutenant General Timothy Maude, who was the Army G1 and the senior ranking officer killed during the attack on the Pentagon on September 11, 2001. This series continues to provide an ongoing forum for reflections of Lieutenant General Maude and his leadership and his legacy, and also an opportunity for prominent leaders, community leaders, and senior leaders in the Army to come and share their thoughts on leadership. We're also honored today to welcome Miss Terry Maude. She is in attendance, and we're so happy that you're here in person. And so if you would not mind just giving a round of applause for Mrs. Maude in attendance. And ma'am, we know you have a special kind of thoughts on your husband and Lieutenant General Maude and all that he's done for the Army and will continue to do. But just thank you so much for taking your time to drive up and be here with us. You know, as we say we celebrate and we remember and we reflect, time passed since September 11th. I know that the majority in the room, because time has passed, may have joined after 9/11. So it's been a few years, but I would tell you it is our responsibility in strengthening our Army profession to remember those that have gone before us, and those that inspire us for the future. So as we reflect on the time past, Lieutenant General Maude's example as a soldier first, his care of soldiers and families, his leadership, they continue to inspire all who serve, and they will strengthen our Army profession for future generations. Without further ado, though, today we are excited to have the 17th Sergeant Major of the Army, Sergeant Major of the Army, Michael Weimer, for attending today and sharing his words. I'd like to invite you to read his bio. I will not read the bio. It's pretty extensive, but I would just tell you he is the first Sergeant Major of the Army to speak at the Lieutenant General Maude Leadership Lecture Series. So thank you, SMA. Thank you for taking the invitation and investing your personal time and sacrifice to be here. So of note, Sergeant Major of the Army Weimer enlisted in 1993, served nearly 20 years in Special Operations units. He's held leadership positions at every warfighting level of command. His vast experiences and achievements are impressive, but more impressive is that he takes time to do things like this and invest in you that are here today to hear his words. So I would tell you to pay attention, take notes, and you're probably going to learn something. We look forward to your perspective on leadership as a Sergeant Major of our Army. And ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcoming the Sergeant Major of the Army, Weimer, to the podium.
Okay, see if I can figure this thing out. Yeah. Okay, it's green. There we go. How's everybody doing today? Who put that poster up there? Who put that poster up there? That was you, KG, wasn't it? That was you. That was you. Hey, it's an honor to be here with you today. I'm gonna do what I've done for at least 20 some years. I'm gonna do this a little differently. I'm not gonna hang out at the podium. I want to interact with you. I wasn't even sure I was gonna make it. The weather was like totally against us getting here, but I think we landed 30 minutes ago, maybe. But it is an honor to be here, ma'am. Some in the room may know this, very select few, but my grandfather was actually an AG officer. He did 30, I think just shy of 37 years. Retired as a Major General Officer, landed in North Africa with Patton. Came home, I think he was a captain when he landed there, came home when Berlin fell as an 06, went back to being a lieutenant colonel. He was active guard at the time, and then became active, and then served all the way through the 70s. So he was an AG officer. He has some interesting stories from Vietnam era, working in the Pentagon with the draft. I won't go any deeper with that one, but I figured a little bit. A personal connection with the community that I have here in front. And so my father was a quartermaster officer, so another little bit of a personal piece there. And I think I have to give my grandfather credit where credit is due, and I have to give my dad a little bit of credit where credit is due. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've looked at people, and I've looked at things like the sustainment community a little differently, even though I have obviously a different background than a traditional service member. But we're a people-centric Army. That is our platform. And I'm pretty passionate about the folks we have in this room right here, because you live that every day. So it's good to see you. It's good to see you. You've been rowing, my man. CSM Garza's been rowing. But we have just the gap of experience in the room, from senior leaders to junior leaders, the opportunity. I wasn't going to jump in a car and drive, I'm not going to lie. But Sergeant Major Smoke Stevens asked me 6 months ago, at least 6 months ago, to come to this event, because he knows where this stuff falls with me. So ma'am, thank you. And thanks to all of you for being here. If I've worked with you in the past, there's a couple folks I think are here. Raise your hand. Okay, there you are. Good to see you. All right, good to see you. It matters. Like, you can't make up caring about people. You can't fake the funk in this space. You actually have to care. And to be honest with you, you get away with it in the 90s, maybe a little bit in the 2000s. And then GWAT really got ugly, and then it really, really started to show. And now I will just tell you, for the younger generation in the room, you've got like X-ray vision. Like, you just see through, let me PG this one. You see through the phoniness. You honestly do. And I think I had to learn a little bit of that through my wife and I raising two daughters. One is 22 right now, one that's almost 20. And I think that's where I learned the hard lesson about what it means to actually be an authentic leader. Like, I can tell you answers to questions, because we're gonna do some questions, and I'm gonna answer your questions, and the answers may not be popular, but what I will never be accused of is not being authentic with you, or being dishonest with you, or telling you a half-truth, because then your credibility's gone. And today's about leadership. And so you need to absolutely protect your credibility. You need to be jealous about it. It is your reputation. And so my challenge to you at the end of today's session, and somebody will keep me on time because you know I'll be terrible about it because I really enjoy doing this. I would ask you to assess your reputation after today. Assess it. Whether you're a captain, a colonel, a one-star, a command sergeant major, I try to do this on a regular basis. Some of you that worked with me in the past, you've heard me say I still shave with my eyes open every morning. And when I'm looking in that mirror, I try to look a little bit deeper than just actually the shaving. Does that make sense? What is your reputation, and what do you want your reputation to be as a leader? That's my challenge for you after this. Because you got to do something with these. If some people may take notes, some people may I'm going to think about that a little later. I'm going to actually challenge you. I don't like the term lecture series, because when I was a staff sergeant sitting in the audience, I would have already turned off, because I don't like to be lectured to. I like to have a conversation about things that matter. And so I'm going to try to do that a little bit today. Talk a little bit up front, and then pull some stuff out of you. Does it make sense? It's good to see you too, man. Good to see you. Okay. So, leadership. It means a lot of things to a lot of different people. But I'll tell you, whatever definition, and I'm trying not to mention a bunch of different books. I think my team's done a decent job out there in the social media space. If you're interested in the books that I've read in the past, that the backing's broken on them because I go back to them as regulars to review things. But I'm here to tell you, the number one thing about your leadership is, do people trust you? Because if they don't trust you, you have no influence. The Army gets away with it a little while because we have this thing called compliance. But true leadership is about moving compliance to commitment as quickly as humanly possible. And the only way you do that is if a second lieutenant or a PFC or a colonel that I may be paired up with on a command team trust me. Trust. We don't trust the information space anymore because, frankly, I'm not sure if you can. And if you have time to research all that craziness, then I wonder what else you're not doing, because it's just so hard to trust the information environment right now. But if you can't trust your leaders, there's a problem with that. And I think we have some of that going on right now. And I don't think it's all because of malice, if you will. I don't think it's because we have just formations full of leaders that we can't trust. I think the issue is we don't have leaders engaged as deeply and as empathetically as we think we do. We were talking a little bit about this on the ride down here, because this is kind of where I decided I wanted to camp out with. There's present leaders, and then there's leaders with presence. And that is two different things. I have known a bunch of people in my time that had presence. They were present in my formation, and I wish they'd go away. Anybody relate to that? You're like, who's coming out to the company live fire? Oh my Lord, how long are they staying? Like, we need to hurry that up and get them out of here before we're not going to get anything done. It's the true statement. I promised you the truth. And then there's the leader that you hear is showing up, or you didn't even know is showing up, that shows up, and you're like, oh, we're going to learn something now. Because they had presence that was desired inside the formation. Does that make sense? They are two different things. The leader that shows up with presence and is actually desired inside that formation to be present, I'm telling you, is an empathetic teammate. They actually care. I didn't say they didn't uphold the standard, and I didn't say they didn't enforce the standard. I didn't say they weren't living Army values. I didn't say they shied away from an uncomfortable conversation. I said they were a leader with presence who empathetically wanted to be a good teammate and make that formation better. Those are very different things. We're a big Army, and I did not realize how big an Army we were until I was fully, I don't even know the term to use, fully thrown into the fire as a Sergeant Major of the Army. We're almost 1 million strong with all our families. And I want to make the statement, I got the team helping me work on this. I think we're the largest institution, at least in the United States, that's responsible for that many people and their families. And I love all the rest of our Department of Defense teammates. We're the largest service, fair. I'm pretty sure all my teammates that work in 3-letter agencies that I know don't have the family accountability like we have. Homeland Security's not collecting the data we're collecting to make sure we're taking care of our families. I mean, we are a unique institution. That requires another level of leadership that I think sometimes we don't give enough credit to, and then we don't acknowledge, like, you have to care a little extra. This is why I'm pretty ruthless with evaluating true potential. Who here's got kids? Anybody have kids serving in the military? Raise your hand. Okay, yeah, there we go. Anybody got kids thinking about it? Yep. Statistically speaking, there are going to be a lot more hands raising, so I just give you a heads up, because we're still around 80-ish% last time we checked, which I think was last year, on how many of our children are still coming in the service. So think about, you're looking in the mirror and you're doing your self-assessment, and now your son or daughter's in the service, and what kind of leadership they deserve. It gets personal really quickly, doesn't it? Really quickly. So now if you have a leader that's not an empathetic leader and sees everybody as a teammate, because by the way, when you go to combat with teammates, or do you go to combat with subordinates? If you've been in a gunfight lately, you know you go to combat with teammates, not subordinates. And if you're trying to figure that out in the heat of the moment, it's too late. Does that make sense? It's a different way to approach your leadership style. I will hold people accountable, but I will hold people accountable with empathy. That's two different things. Be present, but have presence. Make sense? Okay. Something else I wanted to hit on real quick with you. I'm a firm believer that if you're not being slightly intrusive, you're not as engaged as you think you are. Let's open that up a little bit. If you don't actually know your people, and I'm talking about knowing like small things, personal and professional, Whose fault is that? Whose responsibility is that? That's the leader's responsibility, right? I'll tell you, raise your hand if you've had a leader that like really cared and like when they ask you, hey, how are you and your family doing, they actually mean it. I've had lots, right? I mean, we don't talk about that. We talk about the other hand you didn't raise, which was how many people have you had a leader that, you know, was full of crap, just to be blunt, and really didn't care, but PME taught them you're supposed to ask, hey, how you and you married, right? You got kids? You got kids, right? Like, you good? You good? You guys good? Okay, good. Check the box. It's two different things. And so you've got to put yourself out there a little bit, which requires you to be a little bit humble, vulnerable, and then you have the ability to be a little bit intrusive. If you try to jump into your formation and immediately be intrusive without a little bit of humility and vulnerability, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. I don't care what your PME told you. If it didn't say be willing to be a little vulnerable and enter the space with humility, it's not going to work. Now, we can always go back to compliance. You can always go back to compliance. How well does compliance work in the middle of a crucible or a crisis? It doesn't work really well. And so I would encourage you, don't use compliance as your go-to tool, because that's not real leadership. Real leadership is influence. Like we had a couple different unique sayings where I worked for a long time. It was like, hey, I would work for so-and-so, and I don't even need to know what they're working on. What do you mean? You don't want to know what the mission is? Like, nope. Because I know whatever it is, it's righteous, it's purpose-filled, and he or she takes care of their teammates. Yeah, but you don't want to know what the mission statement is? Nope. I'm good. You can read me on to that afterwards. Whatever Oaks is doing, I want in. It wasn't because of money. Oaks didn't get a mission where he got special money that was going to my account. It was because of the reputation the individual had as a leader, how they built a team of teams, and how they don't do anything that isn't purpose-filled and righteous. What's your reputation going to be? The leader that people go, who's in charge? I'm going over here. Be very intentional with what you want your reputation to be. I wish somebody would have coached me a little bit more on that before I was an E8. Because I'm pretty sure I know what my reputation was prior to about halfway through being an E8. A little piece that I have to help hold myself accountable on my desk, and there's some folks in here that know this. On my desk, I've got two pictures. I got a picture of Cadet Weimer. That's my youngest daughter. And then I've got a picture of Staff Sergeant Weimer. I'm in the old greens. You guys can all laugh. And I looked young and fit. But that's not why I look at that photo. I look at that photo and I chuckle out loud sometimes because then I have to look at where I am now. My daughter's the future. I kind of touched on that a little bit already, right? What legacy am I leaving for her? It's a legacy in you. You're the legacy. The leaders that I develop before they take it away from me and I'm no longer allowed to do this in uniform. That's the legacy. Staff Sergeant Weimer was an arrogant, know-it-all, like, I am not the same Staff Sergeant Weimer I was. I think that photo's from like 1996 or 7, somewhere in there. Don't quote me. There were a lot of people that invested in me in this journey. And I'm not the same person I was then. I'm not the same person I was when I was a young, arrogant assault team leader that thought he knew it all and was off the rails until I had leaders like invest in me. Some of them were very uncomfortable conversations. So if I can tell you that and coach and teach you that early, you don't have to wait until you're an E8. Because I wasted a lot of years To be honest with you, I'm not even sure I could have been successful if it wasn't for GWAT. The crucible of combat will change you. And those are some hard lessons that come with a lot of rocks in your rucksack. I don't wish most of them on any of you. But why did I have to go through that to not be that arrogant, cocky staff sergeant that knew it all, that would be sitting in this room right now if I were you, and I'd be like, just get this old dude off the stage. He's a has-been. He doesn't understand here and now. It was because leaders saw something in me and invested in me and didn't quit on me. So, where are you at right now in your journey? Don't be that young staff sergeant. To be honest with you, your generation's better than we were anyway in this, because we were harder, not smarter. Now, some of you might have heard me say, I need you to be smart with grit. Yeah. Okay. Next thing I want to talk to you about, your chain of command. Why do you think, and you can say this one out loud, why do you think we're struggling as an Army right now with everybody going around the chain of command? This isn't physics. This is really pretty easy. The front row don't speak up. Come on, Smith, you got an opinion in this. Why are people going around the chain of command?
People don't have trust in the chain of command anymore. Some people, based off of where they've been, what they've been through, the experience that they had in the military, they just don't feel that some of the people in charge should be in charge because they are not taking care of the people.
Okay, good answer. I think he's actually spot on, because that's people's perception, and your perception is your reality. And so the only solution, by the way, the solution isn't a policy from the Pentagon. I'm going to say that one more time. A policy or a memo signed from the Pentagon does not solve what that spot-on non-commissioned officer just said. So our first class Smith just said. The solution is getting to the younger leaders quicker and actually modeling what right looks like. Who's got issues with their barracks? I'm gonna raise my hand since I'm responsible for all of them. If you're responsible for barracks, you got issues with your barracks. Like, who's responsible for housing? You can raise your hand up. You can raise your hand all day long. I mean, you're Garrison's Command Sergeant Major. We know. Like, who's got issues with promotions? Come on, raise your hand. There's always issues. Like, we're, again, back to the largest institution. There's no such thing as perfection inside our institution. Like, 25 is the year IPSE. It's the year IPSE. I am your biggest champion because IPSE has to work. We will migrate to the cloud, and we will get the second P involved in IPSE, because the pay piece has got to come to fruition. But IPSE is not going to fix our barracks. IPSE is not going to make a perfect promotion system. I'm wire brushing OML this year, but all an OML number is an unpublished sequence number. Somebody's still not getting promoted. There's no such thing as a perfect system where everybody gets everything they want. That's not what this is about, to Smith's point. It goes all the way back to where I started, which is, if people don't trust you and they don't see your audio and video matching, like you're physically engaging with IMCOM on your barracks, or you're not physically picking up the phone and calling HRC and advocating for your people, this name tape, not this name tape, there's no matching video. Or you're physically not getting families together and talking about how Garrison's working with the privatized owner and what the solutions are on your, again, you might not have the answer, but it's what are you doing about it? That is what I think your overall report card's going to be as a leader. Because nobody's showing up with a truck full of money. We can't hire DPW workers fast enough to make sure we have everybody on staff to fix the barracks, fix all the housing. We can't fill all our CDCs because we can't maximize our hiring capability, although we're better this year. We as an Army went up almost 10% in our hiring across the Army, but that may not be your post-camp and station. That may be somewhere else, so that doesn't matter to you. Like, we're trying to do all those things. None of those are going to happen overnight. So what are you doing as a leader about it in the moment when the families are frustrated and your soldiers are frustrated? Because I've been frustrated as a soldier. I've been doing this for 30 years now. I did 3 years as a cadet at Ohio State and ROTC, and then I was a dependent with 3 tours in Europe prior to this. I know the Army. I'm in my 50s. I got plenty of frustrations with the Army. But they've never outweighed the people in the mission, which is why I'm still in the Army. Which is why I go back to, yes, I've had some leaders that weren't role models. But man, I have had some of the most phenomenal leaders. I mean, they write books about them. They do studies about the leadership that I've been able to experience inside the Army. And it continues to outweigh the not so great ones that are always going to be in an institution that's this size, that's never going to be perfect. Does that make sense? Expectation management is a leader's responsibility, to Smith's point. It's your job to engage with your people from an informed perspective so they understand the why. That's a leader's responsibility. Simon Sinek was spot on. That little bitty book, we didn't need that little bitty book in the Army to know what right looks like as an engaged leader. We've been teaching this and coaching this and modeling this for generations. Never did I say it was perfect. But this is leader responsibility. That is the solution to what we have going on in the Army right now. Will budgets get raised? Maybe. That's a congressional thing. I can't sit around and wait for more money. Hey, we'll solve all the problems we're talking about when we get more money. No, we don't. We could get more money in the next 5 years and it would not solve a leadership problem. Because money doesn't solve leadership problems. People solve leadership problems. Whose responsibility is it to develop leaders? TRADOC or the operational units? Oh, by the way, if you're in a COE, you're an operational unit. Whose responsibility is it? I will tell you both. I heard both over here. But where you spend 3/4 of the time of your entire career? It's not a PME. You take an average sergeant major comes out of the academy with, we'll just say, 22 years of service. Now frocked sergeant major, that's going to be talent managed into an E9 billet. How much time do you think they've spent in PME? 22-year career. Sergeant Major Biddle, give me a ballpark.
2 years, Sergeant Major.
2. He's about spot on. So whose responsibility is it to develop leaders? Whatever unit you're sitting in right now. And if you're a leader inside that unit, it's your responsibility. And I've been watching for 2 decades now, a little bit as an outsider from where I was sitting. I've been watching this. Well, that's your responsibility, TRADOC. Well, no, that's your responsibility, FORCECOM. No, that's your responsibility, USOC. No, that's your responsibility, SWIC. It's all our responsibilities to the answer I heard over here. But the primary owner of that is the non-commissioned officer and officer sitting in this room that's responsible for soldiers right now. And so I go back to the mirror. What are you doing? What are you doing? Because every day is an opportunity. Every day you walk away from an uncomfortable conversation is a missed opportunity. And so that's where I wanted to kind of start off with you and just be raw, candid with you. I love the fact you got our international partners in here, because if I was over visiting any one of their countries, it'd be the same way I would talk to them. And I'm fortunate enough I have some phenomenal relationships with all our allies and partners, especially our Five Eye community. So what's my drop dead? Because I'm gonna do questions. I got 17 minutes left? You're gonna give me an extra 10? Awesome. Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna stop there, The only rules I ask, introduce yourself when you ask a question, because I like to understand the perspective, and I encourage you to do this when you're doing LPDs or talking to your soldiers that you don't know. You don't know how many kids they have, you don't know where they're from, you should know all that, but when you don't, if CSM Biddle asks me a question, I know CSM Biddle, so I know the perspective and where he's coming from the reps and sets. But Smith, I don't know. I mean, I can look at him and I can judge, drill sergeant, 82nd Airborne, but I want to know, where are you from? Are you married? Do you have any kids? What's your journey been like, right? Because this is about your journey, not your destination. That's something different for us in the profession of arms. Once you go in depth, it's about the journey. You definitely a capital C for commitment once you go that route. Okay, who wants to ask me a good question up front? Introduce yourself, give me 10 seconds, where you're from, your family, where you're serving, and then, frankly, you can ask me anything.
SMA real quick. At this time, as we transition into questions, please walk up to the microphone. We're also recording, so your questions need to be heard during the recording. Thank you.
Thank you. See, somebody else is always in charge. It's not me. I'm good with that. I trust my teammates. You get a little older, you'll start to appreciate that. Come on.
Sergeant Major, Sergeant First Class, Senior Drill Sergeant of 369 Battalion with Alpha Company, 5th Battalion, 1st Special Warfare Training Group.
I've heard of it.
I'm here stationed here at Fort Jackson, parent company out of Fort Liberty. When teaching, coaching, and mentoring other leaders in the unit, and the leader's perception is that their teeth have been taken away through the shift in power and authority from the drill sergeant NCO to the soldier trainee, what kind of advice would you give to those leaders that are gun shy to enforce the standard, uphold the standard, for fear of retaliation or just allegations, whether they're true or not? I'm not saying discount what the soldier and trainees are saying, but how do we reinstill the confidence in those drill sergeants and non-commissioned officers?
Good question. Good one. Good one. You can go ahead and sit back down.
Thanks,
That's a
sir.
fantastic question. So I will tell you, that is a multifaceted question. I'm going to touch on a couple things there because he opened up a box for me to be able to camp out for a second. So there's two parts to that. One, and by the way, this has nothing to do with whether TRADOC, non-TRADOC. This is just in the uniform, period. And by the way, that's 365. There is no time off. Well, I'm on leave. I don't have to be part of the Army values on leave. Like, not in this profession. You live in those Army values 365, 24/7, or you're not the teammate you think you are, and then we need to have a different conversation. That's two different things. That's part of being in the Army profession. There's no on and off. So, step one, you got to live the standard. But SMA, nope, there's no but. We're back to, are you authentic? If you're going to enforce me, you better be living the standard. You better be the model of the standard. Not like halfway. Like, you better be the model. You're going to counsel me about height and weight? You better be fit. You better be fit. You going to counsel me about a haircut? You better just come from the barber. And I'm here to tell you, there's nobody in this room has spent more on haircuts than I have in the last 14 months. Because I went a long time in my Army career where I didn't have to get a haircut every week. But there was a reason for that. The why existed. It wasn't just because I didn't feel like it. That's the difference. So you got to be the standard. And you got to be proud of the standard. Not trying to find gaps and seams of how to squeeze in between the standard. Be proud to be the standard. So that's two parts to your question. This is not going to solve the problem, but this is going to be the beginning of solving the problem. This is one of the first 10 of the 400 that were just printed that were given out at AUSA, but this is the new Army Blue Book. And you will be carrying it. Now, without you buying into it, back to commitment, does this solve anything? Yeah, a little bit, because it's going to remove ambiguity, because we're removing ambiguity. Instead of 22 pictures of what a haircut could look like, we're going to give you one. Ambiguity gone. Instead of these are the 10 current fingernails that are authorized, we're going to give you the standard of what right is, and then no matter every week a new style comes out, does it fit within the standard? Because we created confusion by trying to get too specific with some photos. Now that wasn't the intent. The intent was righteous, but we created confusion because we can't keep up. I can't keep up with fads. I mean, I'm seeing soldiers now that I'm like, let your bangs down. I'm pretty sure your bangs will touch your chin right now. How much mousse you have in your hair? Or is mousse even a thing anymore? How much gel you got in your hair? Yeah, but I'm within the standard. I'm like, no, you're not within the standard. You're trying to find a gap in a seam. And if you're doing that with that, what are you going to do in combat? What are you going to do when the chips are down? Now as a leader, I'm skeptical. And if you haven't figured out as a leader, the more senior you become, the less time you have to spend with everybody. And so General George does a really, really good job on this. His version of leader mission command is I got to figure out what junior leader I need to dedicate the most mission command to because I don't trust them as much based off of current performance. You want to be that company first sergeant, the battalion sergeant major you need extra time with? Or do you want to be the, good to see you, by the way, good to see you. Or you want to be the company first sergeant that the battalion CSM says, she's a rock star. Unfortunately, Alpha Company just going to get a little less of my time right now because Bravo and Charlie Company need a little extra verifying, right? Because you trust but verify. Well, you only have so much time to verify the more senior you become. And the quickest way, who do I trust? Who's doing the right thing? Who's living the standard? Who's enforcing the standard properly, which is step 3 to your question. You have to enforce the standard with empathy. That's a teammate. That is not a subordinate that you don't care about. That is a teammate. Like I had to figure this one out with my kids. Like I wasn't right at home with this. Now I was dealing with my own stuff, deploying every 9 months for 10 years plus straight. But I had to figure this out with my girls. Those are my girls. I would do anything for them. And if I couldn't enforce a standard at home as a temporary parent, because my wife was the one that did most of the hard work, coming in and being the 5 fingers of death, like how effective is that? It doesn't work. It doesn't work in your formations either. Now, everybody gets so much grace, and then you're going to hold them accountable. And we got processes for that. Don't skip them. If you have a soldier that no longer belongs in the Army, we have a process for that. But we don't belittle, degrade, or treat them like the adversary. Does that make sense? We got to get better about the how we enforce the standard. So this is step 1. Step 2, we're going to roll out the beta version, is the online version that you're going to be able to have on your phone that has everything in it. So no longer will a soldier be able to claim they don't know what the standard is because there'll be one place to go get the standard. 14 months ago, I'll give you an example in my office. I was trying to figure out uniforms. Again, I'll be extra candid with you. There's some folks in the front room that just laugh at me. I went a long time without wearing uniforms all the time, let alone dress uniforms. I wanted to be right. Back to step 1, right? Be the standard. Whew, that required some work. Hey, pull up the reg that states what, ASUs, you're wearing your deployment badge and you're wearing a Pentagon badge. What do you do? Are they side by side on your ASUs? I don't know. These weren't questions I was asking going to combat every 9 months. 4 different people get on Google. Everybody pulls up a PDF. Do you know how we adjudicated what right was? Everybody sounded off with who had the most recent date at the bottom of the PDF. That's how we were trying to figure out what the standard was in the office of the Sergeant Major of the Army. Imagine what you're doing. So now you're the E6 that's out there trying to enforce a standard, and the soldier who's trying to find a seam and a gap in the standard already found the seam and a gap. And so we had to remove that ambiguity, and we had to make a single location to where, because this isn't a problem at basic and AIT, is it? This is a problem in the force. Because TRADOC's doing a phenomenal job right now of modeling what right looks like. Where's the problem? First duty station. Hey, Private, we don't do that parade arrest thing here. Just relax. That haircut thing, you're good. You can go every 3 or 4 weeks. That's the problem. And so this isn't going to cure it all, but it's a beginning. Because we didn't get this way overnight. We're not going to get back to true standards and discipline overnight. But we've started the journey. We're in it to win it. We're 14 months into this, and we're going to be relentless with it. And our Army values are not changing. And we are going to be brilliant at the basics, and we are going to live the standards. We just got to make sure that they're clearly defined so we're not creating confusion, because the truth is, we created some confusion. And that's not necessarily Private Weimer's fault or Buck Sergeant Weimer, who made E5 out of COVID and is trying to figure out how to be a non-commissioned officer, because that's another piece that we're living right now. Raise your hand if you would, and be proud of it. It's your journey. If you made non-commissioned officer coming right out of COVID. Anybody? That's okay. You don't have to raise your hand. You got one? It's a real thing. Your experience, like we've gone back and we're reinforcing our academies and what it means to become a non-commissioned officer. Like we are the envy of the world. And I don't say that with hubris. I say that with confidence. If you're watching what's happening in Ukraine right now, what do they not have? They don't have a non-commissioned officer. A non-commissioned officer is the asymmetric advantage. Back to our people, right back where we started, which I know your husband was just, which is why I love what's on his stone. I love what's on his headstone at Arlington. I mean, that's why he's continued to serve. It's all about the people. Okay, is that fair? Okay, I'm pretty sure I didn't, like, that was no physics. I didn't give you, I mean, it's actually pretty simple, but unfortunately, it's the hardest thing we do every day. Okay, give me another one. That was a good one. Thank you for teeing me up for that.
Good afternoon, Sergeant Major.
Afternoon.
My name is Second Lieutenant Landrum. I'm from here. I'm with AG Class Bullock 12. So
You didn't even
make
get a
some
shout
noise.
out.
All right, and so I'm prior service NCO, so thank you for having this conversation with us.
Okay.
It really resonated. So my question is, with your experience and background in special operations, how do you think conventional Army units can create similar tight-knit units?
That's one of them planted questions. They put you up to that, LT? Did you OCS, green to gold?
I did the Hip Pocket Scholarship, Sergeant Major.
Oh, eat that. Awesome. Awesome. Thanks for that, LT. That's good. It's okay you went officer. It's okay. I expect more out of you.
Roger, Sergeant
That's
Major.
all it means. Standard just, you know. Yeah. So there's some unique things going on, and I've said this a couple times in public forums, since I know everything I say here will end up on something. So I'll just go ahead and say it again. I have never been so proud to watch the conventional Army, the big Army, be so soft-like. Like, it's exciting. The change that's happening now it's never happened at the speed of what is happening right now. I still remember at the beginning of GWAT when we were trying to get out of our own way to fix things in the big Army for troops in contact. And I don't think we were this fast. General George is transforming the Army. The 4 focus areas, real quick: warfighting, the reason we exist, You're going to watch a little clip here at the end so that you walk out of here and you reset why you're in that uniform and why you call yourself a member of this profession. But that's focus area number 1. The second one is deliver and ready combat formations wherever they're needed in the globe or in the United States. Right now, we got Fort Eisenhower, we got Stewart, we got all kinds of teammates that are in need, and we've got our forces responding. Compo 2 and 3 also, because we're total Army. Amazing stuff that service members are doing that most people have no clue. No clue the forest fires we're fighting nonstop domestically. I mean, we do so much in the Army, it's out of control. That's 2, deliver and ready combat formations. Focus area number 3 is continuous transforming. Shame on us if we ever make the statement the largest transformation in 40 years. Because we've got 2 near-peer adversaries that haven't been waiting. They've been watching us fight GWAT and coin fight, and they've been transforming, and they've been studying us. Studying us. And so continuous transformation is very intentional. We should never stop. The ice should never be cold enough in our profession, whether it's human resources or whether you're providing chaplain support to the warfighter and the family. You're always trying to get better. And then the 4th focus area is strengthen the profession. All of those focus areas, what I'm watching is the urgency. The chief is passionate about a sense of urgency. Like, this isn't a POM cycle problem. This is a now problem. We're charged with fighting and winning tonight. And I can't help but acknowledge what ARCENT's been doing here. And if you're paying attention to anything going on in the news, and I do mean like all the news from local to international, like, we're getting crushed with demands prior to storms. Crushed. And ARCENT right now is in the thick of it. And matter of fact, you've been in the thick of it since you took the position. CENTCOM's on fire again. Just say it. It's what's happening again. And so I tell you, I'm passionate about the sense of urgency to change. The 3 brigades, hopefully you're tracking them. You got 2101, 225, and 310. Those are the transforming contact brigades, and we're getting ready to drop the next X order to talk about how we're going to take what we learned there and we're going to extrapolate it across the whole Army. There's going to be some divisions that are identified. I'm not going to get out in front of the chief on that, but we're going to transform some divisions. We're doing that from everything from electronic warfare to counter UAS to kinetic and non-kinetic UAS to C2 next, because we've got to fix our network because everything works on our network, and our network is not where it needs to be based off where technical advancement's happening. And the character of war is changing so fast. If we don't figure out how to change as an Army, have industry come along and change with us, have Congress understand how we need different kind of funding with accountability so that we can keep up, we may not be able to be the Army that we need to be. Sense of urgency. The old saying, don't put off what you can do today for tomorrow. Like, that's the sense of urgency. Like, we have got to get after this. I was very unpopular at USASOC. I'm going to look at you and smile because she knows that. I'm pretty sure there was T-shirts and everything made. Like, I used to, like, who here remembers why the 4-day weekend, the 4-day training holiday was created? I'll tell you why, at least in USASOC. It was created because our dwell, we were getting crushed. And so you would take a holiday and you would pair the opposite, the Friday or the Monday off, and you would make it a training holiday because people's dwell sometimes was 1 to 0.5. Like, to be honest with you, I don't ever even remember hearing a conversation about dwell till 2019. I'm telling on myself a little bit here, but remember, be a little bit vulnerable and enter the conversation with some humility. We didn't count dwell. We just responded to the requirement. I'm not saying that was a good thing, but that was where that extra training day for a 4-day weekend was created. You know what became at the end of GWAT? It became expected when people's dwell was 1 to 7. It became, I've earned it. Well, you earned it when? Like 10 years ago? Like, man, you ain't deployed in 6 years. Like, who's working? We are important to national security. Like, this is not just a job you do to collect a paycheck. So it goes back to understanding your why and talking to your soldiers and understand why you occasionally got to work a weekend. Like, it's important. You can't just expect them to like know it. I'm gonna be 53 years old right now. Like, Specialist Weimer needed somebody to explain to him what was going on and why it was going on. And back then, we just shut up and colored. You don't. Like, you need to understand. And then, oh, by the way, once you understand, you buy in tenfold than I think we used to. We used to just be compliant. If I'm being brutally honest. We would just be like, roger that. You actually go, holy crap, that makes sense. All right, let's get after it. I got some ideas. I mean, it's a completely different environment. We weren't even allowed to talk. I'm like, and I'm not sure I would have had anything value added to say anyway, because I wasn't a critical thinker. I wasn't coached to be able to be part of an inclusive team. Like, that is our bread and butter today, and you're part of that asymmetric advantage. Like, I can remember times when I was on a climbing team. I won't get too detailed in it, but the new guy shows up. New guy is like a master climber. Like, I don't even remember all the pitches. Like, I'm 6'5", 7. I don't remember all the craziness. If you're into climbing, forgive me. That dude was told, be seen, don't be heard. And you're like, what? I think he trained for the world. Like, this guy's phenomenal. Like, he's an alpine skier. He's like, he grew up in Alaska, some craziness. And you're like, be seen, don't be heard. Okay, that's ridiculous. That is not today. Today, that new operator would come in and immediately be value added based off of a crazy niche skill he or she has that can immediately make the team more lethal. It's just a different time. A different time. And so we got to absolutely leverage that with you. Okay, give me another one. 5 minutes? Is that the bonus time, or I get more bonus time? I'm just kidding. Go ahead, please. Yeah, most soft-like I've ever seen the Army, and I'm pretty proud of it. And it's not because I got in this job, for the record, since this is all being recorded and streamed live. This is not because I'm in the seat. This is because the chief and the leaders realize we've got to change. H2F's another example, how much we're investing in human, H2F programs. That's an old soft model. That's the old SOCOM pressure on the force and family model. Now we're doing it in the Army. That's awesome. Okay.
Good afternoon, Sergeant Major. Second Lieutenant Terrion Trueblood from Newark, New Jersey. I was a prior 68 Charlie. My question for you today, you talked at length about the importance of people being our platform. One of the efforts that we've been pushing out is H2F at the unit level. How does H2F and how do leaders build trust in H2F? And how does that impact our soldiers as well as prepare us for large-scale combat operations?
Okay, I think that's another one of those canned questions, isn't it, LT? Well, they gave all those prep questions to the lieutenants. Interesting. I think I saw captains out doing parking. Oh, you guys got this going on, Biddle. You figured this one out, Smoke. I'll have to take a look at the Pentagon. We're doing some different things at the Pentagon. No, I'm totally kidding. I hope you understand that. I'll tell you, the only problem we have with H2F right now is we can't go fast enough. The key piece to H2F is not the equipment. It's not the building, it's not the racks, it's not the kettlebells. It's the 22 SMEs that comes with your H2F. We're trying to get to 111 brigades by 26. The Vice Chief of Staff of the Army, General Mingus, this is a priority. Where's Sergeant Major Wilson? What is it? Once every 2 weeks? He does a touch point. Is it weekly? Every 2 weeks he does a touch point on where we are with the G357 training. That's a 1-star, and a sergeant major that focuses on this in their portfolio gives him an update. That's how important this is. And oh, by the way, it is not cheap. It is incredibly expensive. But because Army senior leadership, I fall into that category as far as the prioritization, it's that important because people are our platform. Helicopters are our platform, tanks are our platform. We got a lot of platforms, but the number one platform is you. And so H2F right now it's costing us money. By the way, that's the same barracks money. That's the same, I mean, all the money's the same. It's that important. The key piece, though, is how do we get that to all COEs? How do we get that to Florida phase of Ranger School that isn't co-located with a unit and a garrison, and shares those? So it's a big problem. How do we get that to Compo 2 and 3? How our National Guard and Reserve teammates get that? So we're trying to figure that out. But I will tell you, the resilient warfighter, and my household resilient, we probably get in trouble for even using that term. We call it grit in my house because it has a little bit more of a meaning of like you got to do things you don't want to do. Like the real definition of discipline is doing the things you don't want to do over and over again until they become routine. That's the real definition of discipline. Not like, oh, that's hard, I don't want to do that. No, that's the opposite of discipline. Like, you have to build that grit up. H2F's a big part of that. You're not taking H2F to LISCO. Hey, can I take my cognitive coach? No. How about the nutritionist? Is the nutritionist? No, the nutritionist isn't going to pick your first island chain. The point is to build that grit and resilience up before, God forbid we even have to do that. Remember, the objective is to deter, right? Like, poke us, it's going to cost you so much, you're going to, okay, just kidding. Like, deterrence, like, we don't want to go to large-scale combat. Nobody wins in that. I don't wish that on anybody. My daughters, my grandkids, nobody. But if we have to, we actually have to be able to do our job. And if we're learning anything of what's going on in CENTCOM right now and what's going on in Ukraine right now, the theory that the next one will be quick, how's that playing out in real time right now? We're in our third year in Ukraine. It looks like World War I with advanced technology. For feet, every day, back and forth. So we've got to survive, and we better be lethal. So that's why H2F is so important. That's why taking care of your family is so important. You can't be the warfighter of character that you think you are if you're not taking care of your family and taking care of the families of your soldiers you're responsible for. It doesn't work. Because if and when we have to go do what only we can do, you're not going to be able to figure all that out then. It has to happen before. Everybody gets a little frustrated with why fitness is so important for us in the Army and why that first formation of the day is still the foundation of everything we do. It's because there's a lot to fitness when it comes to resilience. Probably one of the, maybe resilience and engaged leadership, those are like two terms like so overused right now. You want to be fit, you're going to do the time. You're going to put in the work. You're going to sweat, and you're going to push through some stuff you don't want to push through. And nobody won an Olympic medal out there this year that didn't have to do that. So you got to put the work out. It's the same way. It's mind, body, and spirit. You got to invest at home, or you're going to question whether you have the will to go do what you've been training to go do because you're worried about your family, or you're worried about your leadership, or you're worried if you're even good at your job. You do not want to find yourself inside a combat zone, regardless of what your warfighting responsibilities are in there. You do not want to find yourself doubting any of those things. Does that make sense? That is not a good place to be. You want to find yourself in that space confident. A cohesive, confident warfighting team in whatever regard that is, based off what we're asking you to do for the Army. That's super important. You don't want regret that you weren't ready. Readiness can't be squishy. It can't be squishy. It's not theoretical. It's real or it isn't. And if you're a leader, I'm looking at a bunch of, lieutenants, I'm looking at a bunch of non-commissioned officers, you need to do that right where I started from, that little self-evaluation. Where are you with that? And then what do you want your reputation to be? Because your reputation will always precede you. It will always precede you. What do you want it to be? Okay, it's an honor to be here. We're going to play the video, correct?
Sergeant Major, we're going to go into a token from Miss Maude to show appreciation on behalf of the Adjutant General School.
Ma'am, you didn't give me, ma'am, you didn't have to give me anything.
Sergeant Major of the Army Weimer, on behalf of the Adjutant General Corps and school, thank you for your leadership. These inspiring words in supporting today's lecture.
Thank you, ma'am.
Your support ensures the development of our next generation of leaders and solidifies the enduring legacy of Lieutenant General Maude. We appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to be here today.
Ma'am. Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am. He'll make sure you get a copy of that, too. Okay. I never get the photos, so he'll make sure you do. Okay. You're not getting a hug, though, sir?
No, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. I'll give you a hug.
Thank
Appreciate it. Thanks, sir. Thanks, team. Seriously, this is where I want you to leave here, and then I want you to don't forget what I'm challenging you with. It matters. This is it. This is the only reason I'm still in uniform. Play it.
China's multi-pronged assault on our national and economic security make it the defining threat of our generation.
Comes just as Russia launched another round of ground and air attacks on northern Kharkiv this morning.
Korea claims it has carried out a successful test of an underwater nuclear-capable drone. It's raising fears that the North may be planning to take advantage of conflicts in other parts of the world to launch a war of its own.
And the threats to our nations, they don't sleep. They're watching our every move. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They may be watching this right now. Our military should not be mistaken for a cable news gabfest show. We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for. Who you worship, what you worship, who you love. It doesn't matter if your dad left you millions when he died or if you knew who your father was. We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We've seen war. We don't want war. But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
At this time, the Adjutant General School would like to thank Ms. Kristen Roth and the entire Solomon Center staff for their outstanding support of today's lecture. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the 28th Maude Leadership Lecture Series. Thank you for attending today's lecture. Defend and serve, victory starts here.
Starts here.